Hello, miladies of inestimable value. She's not single because she can't find love. She's single because mediocrity keeps finding her. There's something disturbingly magnetic about Sigma females. They're not loud, not attention-hungry, and definitely not waiting for some prince to decode their silence. Yet, they seem to repel relationships the way a flame repels plastic, not because they can't attract, but because they burn through anything that's not real. Here's the funny thing. According to research, the average woman will date over 7 men before finding a long-term partner. But for Sigma females, that number is closer to 0. Not because they're unlucky, but because most men never make it past the mental security gate. They walk in thinking it's a garden, and realize too late it's a fortress with emotional landmines and laser-precise intuition guarding the door. She's the type who can make a man question his entire personality with just one raised eyebrow. And while other women crave company, she craves clarity. That's why the world keeps calling her hard to get, when the truth is simpler and far more brutal. She's just impossible to fool. So before you assume she's single by circumstance, think again. These are 12 brutally honest reasons Sigma females rarely have boyfriends, and why most men don't survive the experience. Number 1, she knows the difference between love and distraction. Sigma females don't confuse love with distraction, and that's exactly why they're often alone. Most people today mistake connection for chemistry or consistency for comfort. But to a Sigma female, love isn't a temporary escape from boredom or loneliness. It's something sacred, something that must awaken her mind, fuel her growth, and add meaning to her existence. If it doesn't, it's just noise. And she's allergic to noise. She's been through phases where others rushed into relationships for the thrill, the attention, or the validation. She's watched people fall in love with an idea, not a person. But for her, that surface-level spark doesn't cut it anymore. She's too aware, too emotionally intelligent to confuse butterflies with alignment. She doesn't want someone who fills her time. She wants someone who expands it, someone who adds depth to her silence, instead of drowning it with constant chatter. That's why she walks away when most people would settle. She knows that the wrong person can shrink her world faster than loneliness ever could. She'd rather spend a year alone evolving than spend a day losing herself in a relationship built on shallow affection or half-truths. Her emotional discipline is intimidating. She can feel desire and still choose peace over chaos, connection over codependency, and reality over fantasy. What's even more fascinating is that she can love deeply, but not blindly. Once she senses that love has turned into a distraction, that it's pulling her off her purpose, numbing her focus, or demanding she shrink to make someone else comfortable, she withdraws completely. No fights, no closure speeches, no drama, just quiet detachment and a locked heart that doesn't reopen easily. Men often misread this as coldness, but it's clarity. She's learned that genuine love doesn't drain, it aligns. It doesn't take you off your path, it walks beside you. And since that kind of connection is rare, almost mythical, she refuses to fake it for the sake of appearances or convenience. In a world obsessed with constant companionship, the Sigma female's refusal to settle looks rebellious. But it's not rebellion. It's self-respect at its highest form. She doesn't need someone to make her happy. She needs someone who doesn't make her question her peace. And until that happens, she'll stay single. By choice, not by chance. Number 2. She doesn't romanticize struggle love. A Sigma female doesn't glorify pain in the name of love. She's not the woman who'll stick around while a man finds himself at her expense. She's not the type to confuse emotional babysitting with loyalty. If he's still battling his demons, she'll wish him healing from a distance. because she's learned the hard way that loving someone who hasn't done their inner work often turns into a full-time job she never applied for. She's seen too many people romanticize the idea of building a man, turning brokenness into a project, calling suffering commitment, and labeling exhaustion as devotion. But the Sigma female doesn't buy into that fairy tale. She knows that unhealed men don't love, they drain. They attach, they project, and they feed on the emotional stability of whoever is strong enough to carry them. And she's done being the emotional power plant that keeps someone else running. Her version of love isn't about potential. It's about readiness. She wants a man who's done his shadow work, faced his ego, and learned to stand tall on his own. Someone who doesn't need her to teach him self-awareness or beg him to communicate like an adult. She respects men who've met their darkness and tamed it, not the ones who expect her to nurse it into submission. To her, struggle love is emotional poverty disguised as romance. It's when two people cling to each other out of fear of being alone instead of growing together out of strength. That kind of love might look loyal on the surface, but it's really just survival with a pretty filter. She's not impressed by that. She's impressed by peace, maturity, and mutual evolution, the kind of connection that doesn't come with chaos as part of the deal. So when a man tells her, "I just need a woman who'll help me become a better man," she quietly steps back, because she's not here to raise, fix, or guide anyone. She's here to build with someone, not for someone. And until she meets that kind of partner, healed, grounded, and emotionally self-sufficient, she'd rather pour that energy back into herself. That's not selfishness. That's emotional intelligence, dressed as self-preservation. Number 3, she refuses to be emotionally babysat. A Sigma female refuses to be anyone's emotional project. She doesn't need someone to guide her feelings, teach her how to love, or help her open up. She has mastered her own emotional landscape. She knows her triggers, her strengths, her weaknesses, and how to navigate them without depending on anyone else. That level of self-sufficiency makes men who thrive on fixing or rescuing others feel completely unnecessary. Their usual tactics, offering solutions, stepping in to soothe, or taking control, simply don't work because she doesn't need them. Her strength isn't aggressive, it's quiet, unwavering, and unapologetic. She handles her own storms, manages her own doubts, and confronts her own fears. There's no room for someone to play the savior in her world, because she already owns that role herself. A man who tries often finds that his attempts to help her are not only redundant, but sometimes even unwelcome. She doesn't mistake attention or concern for love, and she certainly doesn't mistake interference for partnership. What makes it even more striking is that this self-sufficiency doesn't make her cold. It makes her discerning. She can recognize the difference between genuine support and emotional dependence. Men who rely on rescuing feel redundant because she doesn't require constant reassurance or hand-holding. Her inner stability is like a mirror. It reflects their neediness back at them, exposing the imbalance in the dynamic. Many men aren't prepared for that kind of truth, so they withdraw, frustrated that their usual strategies fail. She values partnerships built on mutual strength, not emotional caretaking. She wants someone who can walk beside her, not someone who feels validated by managing her emotions. If a man can't meet her on equal footing emotionally, she doesn't waste time. She moves on quietly and without drama. Her refusal to be emotionally babysat isn't arrogance, it's clarity. She knows her worth, her limits, and her peace. And anyone who can't respect that simply doesn't belong in her life. In essence, she has no tolerance for emotional dependence masquerading as love. She's strong, self-aware, and unshakably independent. And anyone who assumes she needs saving quickly realizes that her strength turns them obsolete. Number 4. Silence is her truth. Serum. Silence is a Sigma female's most powerful tool. She doesn't rush to fill the air with words or over-explain herself. She understands that meaning often hides between sentences, in the pauses, the hesitations, and the unsaid. While most people are busy performing, pretending, or projecting, she's observing, analyzing, and decoding the reality behind the words. Every silence, every glance, every subtle shift in tone speaks volumes to her, far more than anything that can be spoken outright. When a man talks around her instead of speaking from authenticity, she hears it immediately. The little inconsistencies, the hesitation, the self-aggrandizing stories, all of it paints a picture that words alone could never fully reveal. She has a sixth sense for emotional readiness, and the quieter she stays, the clearer she can read a person's intentions, insecurities, and truths. Men often underestimate this, assuming silence is disinterest or weakness, when in reality it's a high-level form of discernment. Her listening isn't passive, it's active intelligence. She knows that anyone who isn't aligned with her level of honesty, maturity, and self-awareness will reveal themselves simply by what they cannot say. That's why most men who attempt to impress, perform, or charm her falter. In the gaps between their words, she senses their fear, their neediness, or their inability to meet her emotionally. It's in that quiet observation that she decides if someone is capable of matching her depth, or if they're destined to be a distraction. This skill makes her intimidating without her trying. She doesn't need to interrogate or question. Her silence does the work. It forces truth to surface, exposes hidden motives, and tests the integrity of anyone who engages with her. Many men fail because they aren't prepared for a woman who can understand their core from mere observation, who can see past masks and facades with a calm, unwavering gaze. For her, silence isn't emptiness. It's clarity. It's a filter, a truth serum, a mirror reflecting who is truly ready to meet her level of authenticity. And if a man can't withstand the quiet, if he flounders when words are weighed against actions, she knows immediately that he isn't ready for her kind of real. Number 5. Her masculine and feminine energy are balanced. A Sigma female carries a unique equilibrium of masculine and feminine energy, and it's this balance that makes her magnetic yet intimidating. She can be assertive, decisive, and fiercely independent when the situation demands it. That's her masculine energy, while also embodying intuition, grace, and emotional intelligence through her feminine side. She doesn't rely on anyone else to supply these traits for her. She already possesses them in full. This self-sufficiency changes the entire dynamic in relationships because she isn't looking for a man to protect her, lead her, or complete her. She is already complete. Most men are raised on the archetype of being the hero, the provider, the fixer, the one who holds the reins. They are trained to measure their worth by how much they can shield, rescue, or guide a woman. A Sigma female flips that expectation on its head. She doesn't need saving, and she certainly doesn't crave a man to define her life or validate her existence. That throws many men off balance because their usual sense of purpose in a relationship, being the protector, the problem solver, is rendered irrelevant. Her strength doesn't compete with theirs. It makes them feel obsolete if they can't match her energy rather than complement it. Her balanced energy also creates a rare form of mutual respect. She engages with people on equal footing, expecting honesty, integrity, and emotional maturity. There's no room for condescension, manipulation, or dependency. Any man who steps into her world must adjust his mindset from trying to lead or control to walking alongside her as an equal partner, a shift many aren't ready or willing to make. This balance is subtle yet powerful. She can act decisively without arrogance, nurture without neediness, and express vulnerability without losing control. It's why so few men can keep up with her. Not because she's unapproachable, but because she demands self-sufficiency, emotional intelligence, and awareness in return. She doesn't just challenge societal norms of gender roles. She obliterates them in the quietest, most uncompromising way. In essence, her balance of masculine and feminine energy makes her a woman who stands alone perfectly fine. She doesn't need a man to save her, lead her, or complete her. And unless a man can rise to meet her level, he'll never truly be a partner. He'll just be a spectator. Number 6, she doesn't chase, ever. A Sigma female doesn't chase, not because she's indifferent, but because she understands the true value of mutual effort. Her energy communicates a simple but uncompromising message. If the connection isn't reciprocal, it's not worth her time or attention. She doesn't plead for affection, beg for validation, or engage in the emotional gymnastics that many relationships demand. She's fully aware of her worth and refuses to lower her standards to make someone feel comfortable or secure. This approach often confuses men who are used to traditional courtship dynamics. Many expect pursuit, attention-seeking, or flattery as a measure of interest, and when she doesn't perform those roles, they misinterpret her behavior as disinterest or arrogance. In reality, she's exercising discernment. She doesn't need to convince anyone of her value. She allows her presence, actions, and integrity to speak for themselves. Her refusal to chase also serves as a natural filter. Men who can't meet her halfway, match her effort, or respect her autonomy quickly reveal themselves. Those who rely on being pursued to feel significant find her independence intimidating or frustrating. She doesn't negotiate for attention or affection. She only engages where energy flows both ways. This stance isn't cold or detached, it's deliberate and empowering. By not chasing, she preserves her emotional energy for people and situations that truly matter. She values depth, authenticity, and alignment over superficial attention or temporary validation. In a world where constant pursuit is often mistaken for commitment, her refusal to chase makes her presence rare and her relationships intentional. Ultimately, a Sigma female's decision never to chase is a statement about self-respect and clarity. She knows that love and connection only have meaning when they are mutual, and she won't compromise her standards or expend herself on anyone who isn't willing to meet her on equal footing. Her energy doesn't beg, it demands balance, reciprocity, and genuine engagement. Number 7, men mistake her independence for disinterest. A Sigma female's independence is often misread, and that's one of the biggest reasons men fail to connect with her. She doesn't pursue, beg, or perform to gain attention, not because she isn't interested, but because she doesn't need anyone's validation. Her life, her decisions, and her happiness exist outside of a man's approval. She's complete on her own, and that self-sufficiency is foreign to many men who are conditioned to equate effort with affection. Most men are raised to expect a certain level of chasing, calls, texts, flattery, demonstrations of need. When a Sigma female doesn't engage in these patterns, they assume she's disinterested. They misinterpret her calm, measured approach as coldness or rejection, when in reality she's simply exercising discernment. She observes, evaluates, and chooses carefully. Her silence isn't avoidance, it's clarity. She doesn't waste energy on games, and she doesn't fake enthusiasm to satisfy someone else's expectations. Her independence also forces men to confront their own insecurities. When they realize that she doesn't require their approval or constant attention, it can make them feel unnecessary or inadequate. Many aren't prepared for a woman whose self-worth isn't tied to their presence. She doesn't need to be pursued to feel validated, and that challenges men who are used to being the active participant in courtship. What most fail to see is that her independence is a filter, not a wall. She's not keeping people out because she's incapable of connection. She's protecting herself from those who aren't prepared to meet her on equal footing. A man who interprets her autonomy as rejection often misses the subtle cues that show genuine alignment, patience, and emotional readiness. Ultimately, her independence isn't disinterest. It's a declaration. She engages only with those who respect her space, her mind, and her life. She doesn't need to chase, she doesn't need to convince, and she doesn't need to perform. Men who can't differentiate between independence and disinterest are often eliminated from her orbit before they even realize it, leaving her free to reserve her energy for what truly matters: authenticity, growth, and connection with those who can match her caliber. Number 8. Her standards are psychological, not superficial. A Sigma female doesn't fall for the usual markers of attraction. She isn't impressed by flashy cars, sculpted bodies, or fat wallets. Those things might turn heads, but they don't hold hers. What truly captivates her is the architecture of a man's mind, the way he thinks, reasons, reacts under pressure, and processes the world around him. She observes patterns in thought, emotional depth, and intellectual curiosity. She wants to see someone who challenges her mentally, stirs her emotionally, and keeps pace with her inner world. This psychological lens instantly eliminates the majority of men. While most are busy presenting appearances or performing societal scripts of masculinity, she's silently analyzing the core of their character. Can he think independently? Can he communicate honestly? Does he confront his own flaws instead of hiding behind ego? These questions, though unspoken, determine whether she can even consider investing her time and energy. Her standards aren't about perfection, they're about alignment. A man doesn't have to be flawless, wealthy, or endlessly charming. He simply must possess a mind capable of engaging with hers, a heart capable of holding its own, and a soul that respects autonomy. That combination is rare, and she knows it. She's not willing to settle for distraction or surface-level compatibility. Emotional laziness, mental stagnation, or a lack of self-awareness is an automatic disqualifier. This focus on psychological depth also keeps her relationships intentional. She doesn't invest in fleeting sparks or shallow attraction because she understands that chemistry fades when intellect and emotional resonance are absent. For her, attraction is multidimensional. It's a dance of insight, empathy, challenge, and intrigue. In short, a Sigma female's standards are invisible to those who prioritize appearances. She's seeking substance, not spectacle. She's evaluating minds, hearts, and emotional fortitude, and only a few men pass the test. That's why she remains single so often. Not because she can't find someone, but because very few are capable of sustaining the rare depth she demands. Number 9. Small talk feels like mental suffocation. A Sigma female has no patience for small talk because it feels like mental suffocation. Conversations that revolve around trends, gossip, or shallow compliments bore her instantly. She's not interested in repeating what everyone else is saying or performing the social rituals that most people mistake for connection. Her mind craves substance, insight, and originality. Anything less feels like a drain on her attention and energy. When a man tries to engage her with trivial chatter, she doesn't force herself to respond enthusiastically. Instead, she mentally checks out, observing rather than participating, conserving her energy for interactions that actually matter. To her, silence is far more honest than pretending to care about mediocrity. She'd rather sit quietly, processing her own thoughts, than waste time nodding along to conversations that add nothing to her life or growth. This makes her presence both powerful and intimidating. Men who rely on small talk to impress or maintain attention quickly realize that their usual tactics fail. She can see through the facade of charm or empty conversation, and she doesn't hesitate to disengage when the depth isn't there. It's not that she's aloof, it's that she values authenticity above all else. Her disdain for superficial communication also acts as a filter. Only men capable of meaningful, stimulating dialogue can hold her attention. Discussions about ideas, perspectives, and emotions engage her in ways casual banter never could. She's drawn to intellect, curiosity, and depth, not fleeting trends or shallow entertainment. Ultimately, small talk is suffocating for a Sigma female because it's a distraction from what truly matters: clarity, growth, and genuine connection. She's not cold or uninterested, she's discerning. If a man can't meet her on a level beyond trivial chatter, he's out of her orbit before he even realizes she was testing him. Her silence isn't absence. It's a statement. She won't settle for anything less than depth. Number 10. She intimidates men without trying to. A Sigma female intimidates without effort because her confidence isn't performative, it's inherent. She doesn't announce her worth or try to dominate a room. She simply exists fully in herself, and that presence is enough to make others feel exposed. Her calm assurance highlights weaknesses, insecurities, and pretensions in the people around her, and men especially notice it. They instinctively measure themselves against her, often realizing, consciously or unconsciously, that they fall short of her standard of self-possession. This dynamic creates a paradox. Some men idolize her, seeing her as flawless or untouchable, while others resent her, feeling threatened by her independence and strength. Both reactions make intimacy difficult. Idolization leads to unequal power dynamics, where the man feels unworthy and constantly tries to prove himself, while resentment leads to defensiveness, control, or withdrawal. She isn't seeking to provoke either response. It simply happens because of the quiet, unwavering clarity she radiates. Her intimidation isn't about ego. It's about authenticity. She doesn't adjust herself to make others comfortable, and she doesn't apologize for her intelligence, decisiveness, or self-reliance. Men who are secure enough to handle her presence often find themselves fascinated and drawn in, but they are rare. Most, confronted with a woman who refuses to shrink, either idolize or resent, and that binary keeps many from ever truly connecting with her. This natural intimidation acts as a filter, separating those who are emotionally ready from those who aren't. It forces men to confront their own insecurities, their own fears, and their own readiness for a partnership built on equality. If they can't rise to meet her energy, she doesn't chase or plead. She simply steps back, leaving only those capable of genuine engagement in her orbit. In essence, her power lies in her self-assured presence. She doesn't try to intimidate, she simply embodies herself fully. And that embodiment is enough to make most men pause, some admire, and others retreat, proving that true confidence is as magnetic as it is formidable. Number 11. She's not addicted to potential. A Sigma female doesn't invest in what could be. She isn't captivated by a man's potential, promises, or the idea of who he might become if guided or motivated. Most people are willing to overlook flaws or inconsistencies because they believe in growth, transformation, or future possibility. She doesn't operate that way. She deals strictly with reality, who he is in this moment, with no edits, no projections, and no wishful thinking. This clarity is both her strength and the reason most romantic prospects don't last. She observes a man's actions, words, and emotional presence and measures them against her standards. If he falls short, if he lacks self-awareness, emotional intelligence, or the ability to hold himself accountable, she doesn't invest her time hoping he'll grow into someone worthy. For her, love is not a project or a corrective course. It's a partnership that begins with equality, integrity, and readiness. Her refusal to buy into potential eliminates the fantasy that fuels many relationships. She doesn't engage with charm, flattery, or promises. She looks at substance, consistency, and authenticity. Men who rely on impressing her with what they might achieve or who expect patience for personal growth quickly find that she isn't interested. She sees through illusions and doesn't give space for excuses or postponed effort. This approach makes her discerning, even ruthless in the eyes of others. She doesn't linger in hope or nostalgia for who someone might be tomorrow. She acts decisively based on who they are today. That decisiveness can feel intimidating because it forces men to confront themselves as they are, not as they wish to appear. Ultimately, her disinterest in potential isn't coldness, it's clarity. She values authenticity over aspiration, reality over fantasy, and presence over promise. Only a man who embodies readiness, emotional maturity, and self-sufficiency in the present can capture her attention. For everyone else, she moves on without hesitation, conserving her energy for connections that are real, not projected. Number 12. Control over her time is sacred. For a Sigma female, time isn't just a resource, it's sacred. She treats every hour, every minute as a form of currency, carefully investing it where it will yield the highest return: growth, purpose, and meaningful connections. Romantic relationships, by their very nature, often demand emotional overdrafts, endless decoding of mixed signals, forced compromise, and constant attention to someone else's whims. She refuses to spend her most valuable asset on anything that doesn't provide clarity, mutual respect, or genuine alignment. This doesn't mean she's incapable of love or intimacy. It means she values efficiency and intentionality in everything she does. She won't tolerate time wasted on uncertainty or mediocrity. If a man cannot communicate clearly, act consistently, or match her pace, she silently withdraws. She understands that the hours she spends shaping her life and pursuing her goals are non-negotiable. No charm, no promises, no superficial attraction is enough to convince her otherwise. Her approach naturally filters out men who are unprepared for her level of focus. Those accustomed to casual attention, drama, or emotional games quickly find themselves sidelined. She doesn't chase, cajole, or plead. Instead, she directs her energy to the pursuits that matter most: her work, her passions, and the rare relationships that meet her standards of respect, depth, and reciprocity. What makes her control over time so intimidating is that it's absolute. She doesn't adjust her schedule, her priorities, or her ambitions for someone who isn't fully aligned with her life. Men who try to force their presence often feel redundant or excluded, not because she's unkind, but because she understands that time mismanaged is potential wasted. In essence, a Sigma female's respect for her own time is a reflection of her self-respect. She treats every moment as a deliberate choice, and anyone who cannot operate within that framework is quietly removed from her life. For her, life is too short for uncertainty and time too valuable for distraction. She invests only in what advances her purpose, sharpens her mind, or deepens her soul, and that makes her presence rare, deliberate, and extraordinary. Sigma females are a breed unlike any other. Fiercely independent, emotionally intelligent, and unapologetically themselves. They don't settle for superficial attraction, fleeting chemistry, or empty validation. Every choice they make, every boundary they set, and every silence they maintain is a reflection of their clarity, self-respect, and unwavering commitment to personal growth. They aren't single because they can't find someone. They're single because very few are capable of matching their energy, understanding their depth, or rising to the standard of authenticity they demand. From refusing to chase to rejecting emotional chaos, from valuing intellectual and emotional alignment over superficial charm to balancing masculine and feminine energy seamlessly, Sigma females operate on a level of self-sufficiency and discernment that most men aren't prepared for. They understand that love isn't a project, a distraction, or a tool for validation. It's a partnership built on equality, depth, and mutual respect. Anything less is automatically eliminated from their orbit. Their approach to relationships is precise, intentional, and uncompromising, leaving no room for mediocrity, games, or unhealed emotional baggage. What's extraordinary about them is that they wield this power without arrogance. They don't need to announce their worth, manipulate attention, or demand admiration. Their presence alone is enough to reveal who is ready to engage with them authentically and who isn't. Men who misinterpret their independence as disinterest, their silence as coldness, or their minimalism as detachment simply don't see the truth. Sigma females choose themselves first, every single time, and only allow others to join their lives if they bring alignment, integrity, and purpose. In essence, Sigma females aren't just single by circumstance. They are deliberate in their selection of who earns access to their time, energy, and heart. They are living proof that self-respect, emotional intelligence, and clarity are far more powerful than fleeting attention, charm, or societal expectations. They are rare, extraordinary, and impossible to ignore, and they will always prioritize their growth, peace, and purpose above everything else. If you found this deep dive into the mindset of Sigma females insightful, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment your thoughts below, and share it with anyone who needs to understand what makes these women so extraordinary. Trust me, you'll want to keep this channel on your radar because we're only getting started on revealing the truths most people are too afraid to discuss.